And we are back. Destination unknown. I'm Vin.
I'm Dave.
This is Dave.
I'm Vin, and I'm Dave.
A little bit late. There's people in the YouTube chat room who are like, I don't think it's coming on tonight. It's so basically what happened is I'm the guy who always forgets something no matter where I go. That's my MO. I'm known for that. And so this time I forgot the mount for the microphone that I'm using, and I had to go all the way home from my office because now we are in the Cointext offices, and Dave was patiently sitting here one-armed because
Hey, high five. Oh, no high five? Okay, all right. I have sustained what I consider to be the manliest of all injuries.
Right.
I ruptured my distal bicep tendon lifting incredibly heavy things, or actually failing to lift said heavy thing.
Sorry. I'm gonna rupture my tendon trying to scoot my chair around here.
Indeed. So last week I had it surgically repaired. I am eventually, once I go through physical therapy, I'll be better than brand new because now I'm partially bionic. So
Yeah, you've got like a titanium, or is it adamantium? They put an adamantium screw in there.
Yes, it was absolutely adamantium. They drilled holes in my bones and filled it with adamantium. I'm going to be just ridiculously strong when this is over. I mean, it's going to be great.
So we had to do the setup in here, and it took a while, especially because, we've only got 3 hands, and and I had to drive all the way home. But so we've got. What do we have in terms of wine before we get into our topic?
We have a couple of interesting wines. This is a Mondavi Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon 2014. Not sure if that is centered.
2014.
Yeah. How's that showing up?
It's good. No, it's good. It's good.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. So very good. This is the one we're starting with. Very tasty.
Sweet.
Decent wine. This one I've never seen before. This is called Josh.
Okay.
And it's 2015.
Right.
It is. Who is this? North Coast Reserve from Joseph Carr.
Joseph Carr. Okay.
Nice.
I don't know, but we will try it out. So yes, we have 2 wines today. But as always, if you would like to be a wine sponsor and contribute to the wonderful conversation by contributing to the libation, you can do so, and we've got a partnership with Winc.com. That's WINC. So you can just go to vinarmani.com/wine, and it'll take you on over to Winc. If you want to set up for their wine club, you'll get $20 off. And if you want to be a wine sponsor, easiest way on Winc is just to send a gift certificate to us, show@vinarmani.com, and we will use that to purchase some wine. It'll be sent right to us, so you don't have to worry about shipping it. vinarmani.com/wine. Okay. Dude, we've talked about the hash war.
What's interesting to me is that we started this show talking about really weird, we've got the simulation hypothesis.
Yes.
We've got, talking about aliens, talking about Bigfoot, talking about, psychedelic trips, talking about just the craziest parts of the human experience.
Yes.
And over the past 3 or 4 shows, this has been so interesting. I mean, this isn't like we don't get paid to do this.
No, it's super interesting.
This is just, to me, it's like playing out a large part of the general human experience in the microcosm.
Dude, I am so glad that you said that. I'm so glad that you said that because that's exactly what I've been feeling about this whole scenario. And it's weird because so I had done this, I had this period of time where I stopped responding to people on Twitter. And basically, it was basically the hash war that brought me back to having conversations on Twitter. And I've muted all of the people who are like trolls or cultists, so I just can't see them.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean I've muted everybody who disagrees with me, because there's quite a few of those. But if people can present a reasoned argument that actually makes me think for a minute and makes me have to clarify my position and makes me have to ask questions, hey, I'm all for it, bud. Like, I'm totally down. We can have this conversation. Like, that's what I'm about, right? Because otherwise it's just bullshit.
Well, that's healthy. It's
Right.
healthy to have people in your life who challenge you.
Of course.
You don't want a bunch of jerks in your life, but, people who encourage you to think deeper. That's what you want.
Exactly. And this has been having me think so deeply because as we've talked about like the archetypal aspects of this. We've gone and talked about from superheroes to the hero's journey,
Pro wrestling.
pro wrestling. Now it's getting into aspects of Christianity, how that shaped out, not just the gospel stories, but the history of it as well. And, just the religious aspect, the spiritual aspect, and it's like, wow, what a... And the fact that it's all playing out in this very, very public venue,
Yeah.
and just for me, the simple fact that the players involved, I actually have personal relationships with these people. So this is a story playing out on a global stage.
Yeah. For sure.
A really global stage. And it's become evident to me that that's the case. Like, it's become evident to me how global this audience is in large part from being involved in Cointext for the last year. Mm-hmm. We're in 35 countries now. But what we keep being amazed about is before we launch in a country, we have to have testers in that country. Yeah. And we've been able to find testers by doing nothing more than the corporate account will tweet out, hey, we need testers. And between the retweets of the people who are following the corporate account and my own retweets, within a day or two of every country we've rolled out to, we've had testers on the ground. Most recently, Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And so it's like from Brazil to Bangladesh. These people, their eyes are on this saga and story.
Yeah, absolutely. And people are relying on this currency. What you've done is you've made it available to anyone with literally any phone.
Dude, we were getting the old Nokia, pictures of people using it on old Nokias from Ukraine today.
That's awesome. Awesome. I mean, literally, if you can punch numbers into a phone, you can use Cointext.
I mean, so the global nature of this is what's so interesting. And so what I wanted to talk about today, and there's the topic of this is there was a lawsuit that was filed. So we've talked about the hash war. We basically talked about the Bitcoin SV side lost the hash war. Mm-hmm. For all
violating
yes.
all the precepts contained in The Art of War. Had they just read the book, they would have done much better.
Well, it seems as though they've read a completely different book because now a lawsuit has been filed.
Yes.
This lawsuit was filed through a random company that no one had ever heard of. United. Hold on. I'm going to actually, because this time I came prepared. Ha ha. So it's
United American.
United American Corporation. I've thrown it up on the screen for people here. It filed in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida, and that's the plaintiff. And it's versus Bitmain Incorporated, St. Bits LLC, DBA, Bitcoin.com, Roger Ver as an individual, Bitmain Technologies Limited, Bitmain Technologies Holding Company, Jihan Wu as an individual, Payward Ventures Incorporated, DBA Kraken, the exchange, Jesse Powell, the head of Kraken, as an individual. And then the three most egregious ones that I think, Amaury Sachet, Shama Chancellor, and Jason Cox, who are the three main developers of the Bitcoin ABC open source Bitcoin Cash implementation, right? So three contributors to an open source project that if you go and check the contributors on GitHub, has like 600 contributors.
Wow. They
picked three that were the ones they didn't like. And clearly, and I've got some of this and I'll read it. We'll go through it as we talk about it because it's interesting what they're alleging and what they're asking for, what this is asking for in terms of damages. I think this is, ooh, what am I doing? No, there. I think this is actually, weirdly enough, I think this is could end up being the biggest danger to the existence of Bitcoin that has ever happened. and we'll talk about why. But it's like I just thought that today it would be great. You and I both as libertarians. Somebody decided they wanted to involve the state in this thing.
Yeah, Daddy, come help me. These mean people are picking on us, and
The weirdest,
beat them up for me.
The weirdest thing about this to me, and I think by the end of this, people are going to understand why I think this is so funny, is that there are people when I've said, oh well, this is definitely Calvin Aaron and Craig Wright behind this. I mean, this company is like an over-the-counter bulletin board shell penny stock company that nobody's ever heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and people are like, no, they're just, why are you saying that Craig and Calvin even knew about? Never mind that CoinGeek is like covering this thing. They posted up, they wrote this whole sort of propaganda slideshow saying what this whole thing was. No. This is just some random company that we've never heard of before, who just happens to be using throughout the lawsuit the exact verbiage and jargon that has been made up, like rented hash. They use the term rented hash. That's only Calvin and Craig have ever used that.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to believe, oh no, some random company filed a lawsuit in
mercenaries. Yeah. You're exactly right. The terminology that's used, that's a great way to, I don't know if our listeners have ever done this, but there are a ton of YouTube videos out there that actually show how consistent the messaging is across media.
Right,
so you'll watch a news program, local news program, and literally every word for word, exactly the same across the country. And that's how you can really tie it back to a source of information, right? So if in the lawsuit, they are literally using the exact same terminology, which isn't, common. Like you wouldn't, like if I filed the lawsuit, I wouldn't say rented hash, whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying that it's a very recognizable phrase.
Yeah, I mean, and they use the things that they use throughout, and not only that, but to the fact, and I think it says everything that they singled out these three developers, because you got to be pretty in the weeds to know anything about these three developers.
Well, that was going to be my question. Like, what is special about these three?
No, what's special about them is that you know that they are ABC developers if you're in the community. If you're not someone in the community,
right,
you would know Bitmain, you would know Bitcoin.com, but you may know Amaury Sachet because he's out there, he's in interviews and stuff. Shama Chancellor, I don't think I've ever seen an interview with him. Jason Cox, I'm pretty sure I haven't either. So this is like, you would know them if you were involved in sort of the BCH world on Twitter.
But what separates these three from all the other developers?
I would say basically they're the main developers for the ABC fork for that implementation.
Oh, okay. So really, they're just the main guys.
They're just the main. I honestly don't know if of all the contributors to ABC, for sure, Amaury Sachet has a significant number of the commits. He's like the number 3 total commits for the whole software. 1 and 2 are actually Bitcoin Core developers because it's a fork of Core, right? So you get all which is the weirdest thing about it is the things that they're alleging. You could be suing Core developers for commits that they have that do similar. It's so weird. We'll actually. Let's just get into some of it just so that we can get like people can get the gist of what's being alleged, and then we can talk about it God, it's crazy. Okay, a shout out to Glenn, by the way, who forwarded this over to me relatively early. Shout out to Glenn. Okay, so we've got nature of the action. So let's see. This action involves a scheme by a tight-knit network of individuals and organizations to manipulate the cryptocurrency market for Bitcoin Cash effectively hijacking the Bitcoin Cash network, centralizing the market, and violating all accepted standards, protocols, and the course of conduct associated with Bitcoin since its inception. This well-planned scheme caused a global capitalization meltdown of more than $4 billion and caused many U.S. Bitcoin holders, including plaintiff, to suffer damages and irreparable harm. This part is crazy. Violating all accepted standards, violating all accepted standards. All standards, protocols, and the course of conduct associated with Bitcoin since its inception. How if you violate all the standards and protocols, how are you possibly still in consensus?
Yeah.
How are you connected to the network? How is that even possible?
That's there's a lot about this that makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay, so next, so that's the nature of the action. In addition to the significant damages incurred by all stakeholders in Bitcoin Cash as a result of the defendants' overt takeover and manipulation of the market. Now remember, these are not the people who declared a hash war. These are not the people who said that they were going to prevent all trading for 2 years. These are not those people.
No, these are the losers. So these people, I'm assuming, right? These are the people that said, we are going to take you down. Mm-hmm. Then they lose. And now they're like,
those guys tried to take over the market.
We're going to sue.
So it says, in addition to the significant damages incurred by all stakeholders in Bitcoin Cash as a result of the defendants' overt takeover and manipulation of the market, there are significant long-term implications for world economies and particularly the U.S. economy. The market manipulation is centralizing, in italics, what is intended to be a decentralized transactional system, enabling the corruption of the democratic and neutral principles of the Bitcoin Cash network. What was so funny was that after this came out, I would advise everybody to go, if you don't know how to do a Twitter search for a particular person, go and search for Craig Wright on Twitter. Just do @ Prof Faustus, which is his Twitter handle, and then type in the word democracy. And you're going to see a litany of him saying over and over and over, Bitcoin is not a democracy. It never was. And so then here they are saying the market manipulation is centralizing what is intended to be a decentralized transactional system, enabling the corruption of the democratic and neutral principles of the Bitcoin Cash network. Cocaine is a hell of a drug. And then it says, as set forth in greater detail below, defendants have engaged in unfair methods of competition and through a series of unconscionable, deceptive, and unfair acts and or practices manipulated the Bitcoin Cash cryptocurrency market, which is weird, the market, for their benefit and to the detriment of the plaintiff and other stakeholders. Oh, where did I go? So then they say, yeah, we can get into that in a minute. But what is so interesting in this whole thing to me is that in the run up to this thing, the whole idea that was coming from the Bitcoin SV camp was, this is going to be decided by hash power. Nakamoto consensus. This is going to be decided by hash power. This is going to be decided by hash power. Mm-hmm. And the last sentence of the Bitcoin white paper says that what does it say? All rules and incentives can be enforced through this protocol, meaning consensus protocol, meaning Nakamoto consensus.
Sure. I mean, we can verify it. It is Exhibit A, after all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could look.
Yes. Yeah, that's the other thing. They literally put the white paper as exhibit. The thing that I find so funny about this as we go through and as people look at it, what they need and why that I think libertarians should care about this is they're literally using a social contract. Because what they're saying is, here is the white paper. By participating in Bitcoin as a miner, you are agreeing to a contract, and that contract is the Bitcoin white paper. And that if you don't operate as we interpret the Bitcoin white paper, you are in a breach of contract.
Yeah, because you have violated the EULA.
Yeah, you violated.
Yeah.
Exactly. You've violated the end user license agreement. And it's like, no, motherfucker, like, no. No. And actually how we know that's not true is that Satoshi wrote the white paper is a description of the software. And Satoshi himself, when Hal Finney asked him after he had released the white paper, oh, can you give a detailed spec? He was like, oh, actually, I wrote the software before I wrote the white paper. I had to be sure that I could solve all the problems. The white paper is just describing how I solved the problems in the software.
Or he was given the software from the future
There you go.
and then wrote a description of it.
I mean, here's the thing. The greatest, there's been talk for the last 2 years. There's been a lot of times when people have said, oh, Bitcoin is under attack. Like, the core people are like, Bitcoin Cash is an attack on Bitcoin. And then Craig Wright is like, the ABC devs are attacking Bitcoin. But see, the biggest threat to Bitcoin has always been the state.
Yeah.
That's always been the elephant in the room. It's always been the 900-pound gorilla. It's like, how do we keep the state out of Bitcoin long enough for Bitcoin to grow strong enough to withstand an onslaught from the state?
Well, it's certainly not by establishing legal precedent, because that is, I think that's the play here.
Oh, well, okay. So we can skip to the end and then we can come back of what they said. But this is the scary part. People can go and read this if they would like. Some of this stuff is just so egregious. I was talking with Cointech's legal counsel today about this, and he used the term terrorist lawsuit. He said, this is a terrorist lawsuit. That's what it is.
And to just, we are not lawyers.
No, we are not. Look, we're not making legal advice here. We're just commenting on what we see in a public document.
Correct. That's all we're doing.
Yes, I'm not saying what should be done. Please do not take this as legal advice. We are not lawyers. We are just commenting on what we see here. So,
but an actual lawyer did call it a terrorist.
Yes, an actual lawyer did refer to this as a terrorist lawsuit. So this is basically the big count of what they're saying, and it's insane. And this is so they're saying count 1, a violation of Section 1 of the Sherman Act. Now, the Sherman Act is the Antitrust Act. This is a monopoly violation, is basically what they're alleging. That's what the Sherman Act covers, and it says defendants and their unaffiliated co-conspirators. That's weird. Defendants and their unaffiliated co-conspirators.
Yep.
Shouldn't that be affiliated co-conspirators?
Well, no, because they're not.
Oh, they're not of the same, right. So what they're saying is defendants, a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
Defendants and their unaffiliated co-conspirators entered into and engaged in a conspiracy in unreasonable restraint of trade in violation of Section 1 of the Sherman Act and Section 4 of the Clayton Act. Basically, the two things they're saying is they brought in hash power from another network. So they took their own property, their own computers, turned them on, and started running software on them.
Yeah. How dare they?
How dare they?
We had plans.
And
these guys come along and ruin our plans. We're going to sue them.
And the other thing that they did, supposedly, that they are being accused of, and this is why the 3 devs are on there, is that they wrote in a checkpoint into the software that is open source, that is voluntary, that absolutely no one had to download the patch for, that anybody could have downloaded any version of the software that they wanted and run it, that in fact Bitcoin SV software itself is a fork of that very software that has been altered. So anybody could fork it, anybody could alter it, but these guys on their own GitHub accounts, on their own software that they are able to make changes and commits to, had the brazen temerity.
Ooh, brazen temerity.
Had the brazen temerity.
My. Somebody is using their thesaurus toilet paper every day. That is impressive.
What did they do? They wrote some code. They wrote the code that they wanted to write, and they committed it to GitHub, and they released it for people to be able to run if they so chose to do it.
Wow. The temerity.
That is criminal. That is absolutely criminal right there. That was sarcasm, folks. That was sarcasm. So what are they asking for? Awarding, this is the main one that's crazy. So this is the injunctive relief. So of course they're asking for money, an unspecified amount, damages to be decided. But this is the one that I think makes it the biggest threat that Bitcoin has ever had were this thing to go through, and why this has to be handily defeated, and what this legal precedent means. Like, people have been like, oh, this is... Especially all these BTC people, there's less and less of them. I think they're realizing, they said the same thing before the hash war. Oh, this won't affect BTC, and now they're jumping out of windows because it's lost so much value. When I was like, it's gonna affect you. Please listen. All the people who think this doesn't affect them, listen. Oh, this doesn't affect me. This is just a bunch of B-cashers, B-cashing, and it's like, all right, dude. Well. Cool. Up to you. So here it goes. Awarding injunctive relief against defendants to 1, prevent Bitcoin ABC from continuing to implement checkpoints on the Bitcoin Cash network and any other implementation of the software that would prevent the resulting chains from being able to be remerged. So they want the judge to order what code these guys can and cannot commit and make available. That's the first thing.
Wow, that is all about Nakamoto consensus, isn't it?
All about Nakamoto consensus. And B, requiring them to return the blockchain to its previously decentralized form with the previous consensus rules. Now, this one is particularly weird. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna just repeat that, and then we can talk as software people about why this is crazy, but at the same time why a judge might actually think that he could make this order. Mm-hmm. Requiring them to return the blockchain to its previously decentralized form with the previous consensus rules. Okay. So throughout this whole thing, basically what they say is they say that the checkpointing made it centralized. That's their primary claim throughout. And so what they're saying is return the blockchain to its previous decentralized form. By that they mean before the checkpoint, which is November 15th. So they're asking ABC to reorganize, roll back the blockchain, which they actually can't even do. Like, you can't, I guess they could write, it's so weird. There's other implementations that are mining right now, right? So you've got Bitcoin Unlimited. Bitcoin Unlimited is not named in that. Mm-hmm. This is Nakamoto consensus, following the longest chain. Even if ABC was to rewrite their code, they're still going to follow everybody's still going to follow the longest chain.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is still out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's you've got BCHD, you've got Bitprim. There's another one that just mines something that starts with a C. And it's written in Go, and it's like some miner just mined something on that. The idea though that a judge This is actually way bigger than Bitcoin, because the idea that it's within the purview of a judge to order a developer to write specific code, that a judge decides what consensus rules are legal and illegal, or that they can order specific code to be written into software and released. Not just because they're not just asking, make it so that X code is, let's say that's illegal, or that breaches our intellectual property or something, like put an injunction that they can't use this code. No, they're saying you have to take specific actions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really scary because, as I was talking to our counsel, one of the things that came up was the idea that, one of the things that he said could be a concern was that this is not something that this judge is going to know.
No.
And the problem is that when a judge doesn't understand something, they almost, especially at a federal district judge, they'll almost never throw the case out.
Wow.
Because they have no grounds to throw it out on without hearing the facts. They want to hear the facts.
Yep.
And in order to hear the facts, if you're a defendant, that's going to cost you potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Sure. Absolutely. This is expensive. This is going to be very expensive. It's interesting. I don't think the judge is the only one that has comprehension issues. There are some things in here that just don't make sense. For example, line 82, during the applicable period, defendants took control of the Bitcoin Cash cryptocurrency market by artificially pumping up the chain implementation with computer hashes. So they pumped up the chain, pump it up. So they pumped up the chain with computer hashes. Look at all the pretty hashes. They're just piling up everywhere. All these hashes just piling up.
What does that even mean? Pumped up the and how is that a market?
I don't know. I mean, it is a misstatement of how it even works. The technology.
The whole thing is a misstatement of. But see, that's the problem here. The problem is that this is far too difficult for a judge to understand.
Right.
And so what he's going to be relying upon is basically the arguments coming from these attorneys, mm-hmm. his relationship with these attorneys and whether or not he trusts them.
Yep.
Whatever expert witnesses are brought in by either side.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got the money, this is a known thing about expert witnesses. Like it's a money game.
It is.
You can get somebody. And it's not even that the witness is like lying, but you can find somebody who truly believes what they're saying, and you can literally find the person who thinks this thing or the person who thinks the exact opposite. They're both out there for hire as expert witnesses.
Yeah, I mean, any bets on Dr. Craig Wright being an expert witness in this?
There's absolutely no doubt. There's no doubt. And I do think it's interesting that he's now posting things where he's going around and he's speaking at, I think there was a recent thing at Oxford, mm-hmm. and then he was posting something where he met with like a member of parliament where he got these patents bound, and he's like, I got all 160 patents bound. And so you imagine that they're going to trot in Craig Wright mm-hmm. as an expert witness. They're going to say, he's got all of these patents. He's got all of these degrees.
Mm-hmm. He's been there since the beginning.
He's been there since the beginning. He's this and that and the other. He was just speaking at Oxford. Talk to us about here's your pictures from speaking at Oxford. And talk to us about this. And
yep.
That is, it's to get back to the thing about the grander scheme in microcosm.
Mm-hmm.
I've had this concept that has served me very well, and it's funny because someone actually asked about it today. That it was like, what's the difference between love and hate? And I really think that it's the dichotomy of hope and fear.
Oh, that's nice.
Right. And somebody was asking me, well, how do you know? because I said they're equal to each other in terms of how they motivate somebody, and they were like, well, how do you know? And so what has served me well for years, and I figured this out, I don't know how, but it's you can tell by where their gaze is focused. And it's like if you see a guy running down the street, right? He's either running towards something, like if he's at a full sprint, he's either running towards something or he's running away from something.
Yes.
But how do you know which is which? And it's all about if he's running towards something, he'll be looking straight ahead, eyes focused on the target that he's running toward.
Yep.
And if he's running away from something, he'll be constantly glancing behind to see where is that thing that's chasing him.
Yes.
And that trope in horror movies of like the person running away from the killer, and because they look back, they don't see the route in front of them or the raised sidewalk or whatever it is, and they trip over it, and then the thing gets them, right?
Yep.
So
Every time.
So for me, I've always said, well, this is how you know the difference between love and fear, between love and hate, fear and hope. And it's always about, because love is all about the hope to gain. And hate is all about the fear of loss. And that you can tell whether someone is moving in love or in hate, because the person who's moving in hate, who's moving in fear, is constantly worried about. It's more that it's not that they want to win, it's that they don't want to lose.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's what we're seeing. Like, this is it right here. This is about like. They're beyond the point now of wanting to win, because there is no winning at this point.
No, what they're asking for is a control Z. They're like, we want to control Z the hash war so we can then control R it and win. So undo, right? Rewind to where we were before. Let's set everybody up again. Okay, now go. And, that's why I think they want the blockchain restored to its previous state, so they give it another shot. I mean,
well, they say right in there to restore it so that it can be remerged. Remerged with what?
Don't know.
Remerged with what exactly? Like, what are you talking about? Where's this other? What is this other chain that could be remerged? The scary part about this is that's actually not a win. That's not a win. Because the only way you get that is if now you've set precedent that a U.S. district judge has the authority to roll back or change the consensus rules of a Bitcoin blockchain.
Imagine how many lawsuits are going to follow.
Dude.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy.
Like, that's why I say this is the greatest threat.
Yeah.
And because what it does is you can absolutely take developers out of the mix. And it will have a chilling effect on why would I want to be a protocol developer and contribute? Why would I want to put myself at risk to be sued?
Right.
In federal court?
Yeah, because these are individuals. These aren't corporations.
No.
These are individuals.
These are individual developers who are open source. People don't understand, like, these guys, the people who contribute to open source projects, a lot of the time, most of the time, those contributions are not compensated.
No. It's done free. They do it out of love. They do it because they care about the project and they just want to see it succeed. And countless, millions of computer programmer hours have gone into various open source projects. And it's all just out of passion for what it is that they're doing. Very few of them ever make any serious money.
No, and why? And so what? So what you want to do then is you want to set a precedent that, and again, there's not even intellectual property involved. These guys are not even claiming this is our software. It's on an MIT license. They're like, we're releasing this for free. You can take the source code, you can fork it, you can do whatever you want with it. And as a matter of fact, Bitcoin SV did just take it and fork it to the point where these guys are top contributors when you look at who's contributed to the Bitcoin SV code, because there's not really that much difference between the two. A few minor changes.
But if we have a judge actually saying this thing has value, it is now considered currency, it's considered a security, it's considered whatever legal entity that they apply to it, then that opens the door for every cryptocurrency, every blockchain.
Oh yes.
Just anything is open game at that point. So, this is a big deal, and this. I don't know if they had this contingency plan from the beginning.
You know what? I think they did, because there was I remember Craig on a live stream during and they've got to bring it up. There was a live, I'm sure it's recorded, but it was what was done on Keyport TV. Craig was drunk throughout the day of the and this is not like some sort of like defamatory statement. The dude is literally sitting there talking about how he's been drinking scotch all day with holding up scotch. So I can't. That's like if someone was like, well, Vin and Dave were on their show and they were drunk, and it's like, well, that's going to be really hard for me to prove liable in that case, because I'm literally sitting here drinking wine. So in that case, Craig was drunk throughout, and he kept calling back in throughout the day. And then they're like, well, what's going to happen if, basically if you lose or whatever, is this the last thing? Is this it? And he was like, oh no, we've got lawsuits coming up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've got lawsuits ready to go and planned against them and all of this.
Man, that's crazy.
And it is the most sickening part about it is it's that person who's like, who goes to start a fight, who's like, we're gonna settle this. We're gonna settle this like men. You know what? We're gonna settle this right here. We're gonna settle this right now. Step outside. I'm gonna knock you out right now. We're gonna settle this. And you're like, we don't really have to do this. And he's like, we're gonna settle this right now. Step outside. Pushes you. Step outside right now, motherfucker. You're like, all right. Step outside, boom, headbutt, knock him out, right? And then you're like, I told you, bro. I told you didn't want to do this. Like, I told you really didn't want to do this. He's on the ground. He's shaking, having like a little mini seizure from the head trauma. And then 2 weeks later, you're just chilling at home, and there's a knock on the door, and somebody serves you a subpoena, and he's like suing you for his medical bills.
Yeah.
And you're like, motherfucker, you told us that we were going to settle it right there. You didn't tell me we were going to settle it in court.
Yes, but I had that planned on you giving me brain injury.
It's just the I don't even know. The feeling that I get about, as a grown ass man, about an individual that would do something like that. I'm like, who are you? Like, what kind of a terrible person do you have to be?
Well, interestingly enough,
can I have some more wine?
Please, yeah. Let me. Okay, there we go.
Okay,
got
cool.
it.
Yeah,
okay,
thank you.
So
he's using one arm, so
one-armed wino. So I actually, I have not, watched a lot of, Craig's videos, but what I found interesting was that. You're welcome, sir. So there was a particular video I was watching, and somebody in the audience, he had just given a talk, and at the end of the talk, somebody in the audience asked him about the, fake Satoshi proof that he provided. And he did two things, which I thought was really interesting. One was he did not ever answer the question. And two, he made fun of the guy, ridiculed the guy in front of everybody. And
wait, was this in China? Was this the one in China?
Might have been. I don't know.
Or in Taiwan, I mean? Did he get into a fight afterwards, or like a shouting match afterwards?
No, it wasn't a shouting match. I mean,
Okay.
he basically just, he never really answered the question, and then he ridiculed the guy and told him that he's obviously just not smart enough to get it.
Yeah, that's Craig. That's what Craig does. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so that's what charismatic cult leaders do when they're criticized. Other cults, using the modern, current definition of cult, which has changed over the years, but the way most people understand the definition of cult, If you look at some other cults and how they behave, they are also not shy about taking people to court who criticize them or whatever.
Let's not say the name of the particular cult that we're referencing, because we don't want to be taken to
we
court
do
by them.
not want to. Yeah.
But I think a lot of people will probably know who it is we're talking about if they if they follow the news. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting because it to me it is a pattern of behavior. So when you have a certain personality type and you have a certain type of organization, those practices of not answering questions, ridiculing your the people that criticize you, and then taking those to court, who you just really need to silence or you want to punish.
Yeah.
That those are all behaviors that are very typical of that mindset, and we're seeing exactly the same thing here.
It's I don't I tweeted this today that I said, if you want a U.S. federal judge to be the final arbiter of the rules for the money that you use, what the fuck are you doing in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, why are you here? There's already a money. There's already a money that is regulated by the U.S. government. If you would like that, there's already one where U.S. federal judges are the final arbiter of the rules associated with that money. We already have that. It's called the U.S. dollar. Just use that.
Mm-hmm.
The whole entire point of Bitcoin, the whole entire the reason for its existence. So Satoshi says it, like, he's very, very clear about the idea that this is meant to be something that where the rules can be decided within a consensus mechanism, and you don't need a central authority. You don't need a final arbiter. It can all be, he just says over and over, it can all be decided right here inside this mechanism. You don't need to go outside. And these are the people to file a lawsuit, and then in U.S. federal court, and your Exhibit A is a document saying U.S. courts never need to be involved in setting the rules for this thing, that literally explicitly says any incentives or rules can be enforced using this consensus mechanism contained in this document.
Yeah.
Not in U.S. law, not in precedent of court cases, none of that. Right here in this document. And then you're like, they violated this document, so therefore you set the rules.
The whole point was to rely on mathematical proof. And, it's like now we're going to abandon the mathematical proof and go to some arbitrary judge who more than likely isn't going to have any idea what he's reading.
Well, mathematical proof and natural incentives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is where Satoshi was naive. And I realized that this is where everyone is naive. And I myself was naive until I ended up crossing the path and getting into a relationship, actually 2 successive relationships, because one just wasn't enough. I didn't learn my lesson. I dropped from one right into another of legit high functioning psychopaths.
Wow.
And well, I look back and it's like, of course I did, because they're predators,
mm-hmm.
right? And the ones that are operating at the highest level are preying on the highest grade of prey.
Sure.
And at the time when I was preyed upon, I was of the highest grade of prey. And I'm a particularly empathetic individual,
mm-hmm.
and I'm a generous individual, and I'm, compassionate, I think, kind, I'm easy prey, or I was, right? And I think anybody is until they've really ran across a psych. And if you haven't run across a psychopath, you're very, very lucky. And most people, and people who are not psychopaths, so this is like, maybe 1 to 3% of the population. People who are not, we just can't even imagine what's going on in their head.
No.
What for us, we're like, we hear that they would do something and we're like, our first reaction is, they didn't do that. That's crazy. And then we hear that like they actually did it and we're like, it must be like 40 chess. There must be something else there. I must be missing something and not understanding. There's something else there because we can't even process what is occurring with somebody who has no empathy, no capacity for empathy or compassion or any of these things.
Right, because and it's not a skill that you can learn.
You can't learn it. No,
it is a physiological difference. So you can have someone, the average person can kill another person,
sure,
given the right circumstances, whatever. But the act of doing that is traumatic.
Yes.
I mean, their heart rate is through the roof. Their adrenaline is pumping. I mean, it is like, holy crap.
Well, they say most PTSD is actually from acts that the person who has the PTSD committed. It's from guilt. It's not from things done to them.
Yeah.
Most PTSD is from the trauma and guilt of doing something to someone else.
I believe it. But then you look at a psychopath, a true psychopath.
Right.
Their heart rate's normal. They could literally stab somebody in the eye.
Yep.
And never blink. Their heart rate doesn't go up. They don't have any kind of adrenaline rush. Nothing.
Well, yeah, this was the second one that I ran across, right? And that was mind blowing. But this was also someone who was sort of very even open about it, and like the sort of malevolence, the level of malevolence was just wow, to where you're like, wow, you would not just stab somebody, like literally stab the person that you just said was the most important person in the world to you, and all of this would like slit their throat in a heartbeat and be like, oh, well, all right.
Wow.
So what Satoshi didn't realize, and it's clear in the incentives section of the white paper, right? You can see that there's this, it's an interesting section. What he is communicating is he's communicating this idea, and I've like distilled it down recently, that he's basically saying, okay, look, in this system that I created in Bitcoin, you can't inflict pain on others without inflicting pain on yourself. And for non-psychopaths, that's a perfect governing mechanism.
Yeah.
Like for us normal people, that keeps us straight. Because we're like, oh, if you're saying I can't hurt them unless I hurt, well, I'm not going to hurt myself.
Right.
And my family and the people around me and my reputation. So you're saying that the only way that I can like do damage to this guy's house, the only way I can burn his house down is I have to burn my house down as well? Well, his house is safe from being burned down. And that's in general how society works.
For sure. Now, to bring in an example from the comics, I don't know if you recall this, but Darth Vader did have a final battle with Darth Maul. And Darth Maul was actually a superior fighter. He was winning. And Darth Vader, the only way that he could actually kill Darth Maul was by stabbing himself through the midsection.
Got it.
Into Maul, who was behind him.
Okay.
Killing Maul and
wounding
nearly
him. Yeah.
wrecking himself. I mean, on the verge of death, right? So that's the kind of psychopathy we're talking about here. Is, are you willing to damage yourself, potentially irreversibly, in order to kill your opponent, win the contest, do the thing?
And that's what these guys are. That's what they are letting into the room with this particular psychopathic act. It's like, you say that you want Bitcoin to be the currency of 5 billion people, but yet you are letting in the greatest threat and the greatest enemy
Yeah.
to this by giving the state control and a say over and it's like, wait, you think this isn't going to be used against you?
Oh, yeah.
You're running Bitcoin networks. You think this isn't you think somebody's not going to use this against you? Are you crazy?
Yeah. Hey, you see what those guys are doing in Afghanistan? They are fighting against their government. This is great. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them a bunch of arms, and we're going to support their fight.
Thank you.
You know, a few years later.
Yeah, they're fighting against Russia.
Yeah. A few years later, oh, man, those guys in Afghanistan, we got to do something about them.
A few years later, those twin towers that we had, that World Trade Center.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's blowback, right? But that's the same thing with ISIS. I mean, it's this same story over and over. You reap what you sow.
Yep.
You sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind. These guys are trying to sow the wind, and it gets them nowhere. Rolling back this blockchain isn't going to help them in some substantial way. All it's meant to do is it's meant to reduce investor confidence and to punish individual people by making them have to go through this lawsuit. Mm-hmm. And if they don't participate in this lawsuit, that's the other thing. If they just ignore it, they lose.
Wow.
Because if you just ignore it and you don't put up a defense, one, it can't be thrown out, right? Because the only way it's going to get thrown out is if your attorney puts in a motion to dismiss. So that means you're not ignoring it straight up, right? So I think they may even be thinking, because you've got Amari Sachet is in France, right? He may not even there's and I don't even think Roger Ver has a location in the U.S.
No, he gave up his citizenship, right?
That's what I'm saying. And St. Bitts is a Kittian, St. Kitts and Nevis. He's a St. Kitts and Nevis citizen with the St. Kitts and Nevis company. And then you've got, Jesse Powell and Kraken are probably in the U.S. I know two of these developers are in the U.S., but it's just one of those things where they may even be, look, the venue is not an accident.
No, not at all.
The choice of venue, like where do you file this, is not an accident, because it could very well just be that Bitmain is like, well, we'll just ignore it. We're a Chinese company. We'll just ignore it. They've got Jihan Wu listed in the lawsuit as a resident of San Jose. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? San Jose? This dude lives in Beijing. What are you talking about? So, they could just be like, oh, well, if they ignore it, then we're just going to get a summary judgment. And just like, really, that's the precedent you want to set? Like, you're talk about destroying Bitcoin. Like this whole thing of, these people are trying to destroy Bitcoin. They were trying to say, ABC's trying to destroy. That's just a narrative, right? But letting the state in, that's for real.
Yeah. Because they're never going to get out.
No, once you let the vampire in.
Yeah. That's it. And that's the thing. It's like, this is why, I'm like, it's about the precedent. I mean, I don't know that, Craig and his cronies are going to end up, I'm assuming they're going to end up regretting this at some point. But, for now, I think it's about getting the judgment. It's about getting the precedent set. And, whatever they can establish through this mechanism, they're going to use as weapons as long as they can until it starts to be used against them. And then we all lose.
Well, I have said for a while, and it's been sort of a Vinstradamus prophecy that I have not really wanted to come true, but I've said that Bitcoin is an outlaw. It's an outlaw enterprise, really, and I mean outlaw in the traditional way of like, if you decide that you're going to be a part of Bitcoin and Bitcoin is going to be your money, you're basically renouncing your claim to be able to sue somebody in court or to be able to call the cops on somebody. It's like you're taking personal financial sovereignty for your own funds and your own wealth, and the system will allow you to do that. Control your own keys. Nobody's going to be able to steal from you if you secure yourself.
Yeah.
You don't need to use the state. But in that way, you're deciding to be an outlaw. And it's the value of it is in being an outlaw because it's way more efficient. It's an efficiency to not have to either... Well, that was always the promise, right? That I don't have to worry about the state, but at the same time, I'm not going to ask the state to solve my problems in Bitcoin.
Yes. Or in anything, really. I mean...
Well, that's the radical libertarian outlook, right?
Yeah. I mean, ideally, we wouldn't need a state, and there wouldn't be a state. We could certainly talk about all the reasons why that may or may not work in today's world, because the state has actually created so many problems that probably can't be solved at this point.
But this is the way out, right? Like that's been always for me the promise of cryptocurrency. It's why my ideological and philosophical focus as a libertarian has shifted almost completely to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, to the point where discussions that I used to find stimulating in the libertarian world now bore me. Proving myself morally superior to status, which intrigued me for decades, now no longer does.
Yeah, I mean, it gets tiring after a while. It's like people are going to get it or they're not going to get it. It is difficult. God, there was a great meme. There was a picture, and it was like a bunch of shiny, happy people all together, and it said what libertarians feel like when they're hanging out with each other. And then it's like at the bottom, there was just the one person from the center surrounded by potatoes, and it's like, this is what libertarians feel like most of the time. And I'm like, that's true. It's like, when we're here in New Hampshire, we do have an advantage because we are surrounded by shiny, happy people all the time, and not as many potatoes, which is fantastic, because, where I came from before, there's so many potatoes.
Right. There were, when I was in California, there were a lot of russet potatoes, a lot of red ones. You know what I mean? In
red bone potatoes.
Yeah, in Nevada, there's a lot of shiny, happy people. I'll say it's a pretty laissez-faire type of environment, but by default, not by a kind of a philosophical choice and a lifestyle choice, right? It's just more like, are there even laws here? Like, what's going on? Like, it's
well, that's the great thing about. I mean, think about Vegas. There could literally have been, replicas of Vegas everywhere across the country.
Right. True.
Vegas was the only place that was making so much money on their own that when the federal government came and said, hey, you better change that law, otherwise we're going to, not pay you to build your roads. And Vegas was like, fuck you.
Cool, we got it. We got it. We got the roads. Don't sweat it. We got it covered.
Yeah.
And they're damn good roads, by the way.
Yeah.
Damn good roads. Like, you don't know how good the roads in Vegas are until you bring your car that has been in Vegas for years, and you bring it elsewhere, and then you pay all kinds of money because the suspension is wrecked.
I will say though, you did get snow tires.
I did get snow tires.
That is fantastic.
I did get snow tires, and and I got a full front end replacement on everything because it had torn it up. But I would much rather live free or die and have to replace my front end every once in a while than there's creeping stateism in Nevada just because people, people got things that they thought they wanted.
Yep.
So there's like this, the meme about Vegas is, people that grow up in Vegas, because it's a very young town. I mean, really, the 60s if you find somebody like a Jimmy Kimmel who's his age, who was born and raised in Vegas, they are few and far between, but they run that town. They run it. Like, if you're born and raised in Vegas, everybody that I've met, born and raised in Vegas or multi-generation in Vegas or multi-generation Nevadan, who's like over the age of 40, is in some massively powerful position.
Wow.
And a lot of them, it's like very little education, but they're like, oh no, I worked my way up from like the kitchen at the Golden Nugget when Steve Wynn was running it. And then it was like, he just knew me. Hey, Johnny, like back in the mob days, basically. Yep. And that it was just like, they would just be like, what about, we need a manager for this thing. Well, what about Johnny in the kitchen over there? I like that guy. He's a good, hard worker, good kid. Comes in, he's always on time. It's like, hey, Johnny, you want to be the manager? Like, there's tons of stories. And then it's like, eventually it's like, hey, Johnny, you want to be like the vice president of the resort? Okay, shit, I know everything about how to run a hotel.
Yep.
And there's so many of those people. And so it's like, people, I think, that was not enough, right? So like Jimmy Kimmel, he jokes about, and he like shits on Vegas. He shits on being from Vegas, and now it's like a shit town, and there's nothing there, and blah, blah, blah. So people wanted things. They wanted professional sports teams, so they got the Golden Knights, and they got, go to the Stanley Cup. Like, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Like, first year out. Boom. And now the Raiders are coming, and they'll probably get an NBA team. And it's like, and then you get the cops all of a sudden change. Like, I watched them change in the 8 years that I was there, from like, damn, these are the coolest cops in the world, to, oh my God, these guys are bigger assholes than LAPD.
Wow.
Like, it really, in 6 years, it changed.
Man.
We're going to clean up this town. And it's like, it's clean up. This is Vegas, man. Like, they took out all the soul.
Yeah.
All the soul is gone. So when I got my place and moved there full time in 2011, I moved, it was in downtown, and it was like the beginning of, it was so funky. Like, there were these little bars, but at the same time you had like these like SRO type of hotels with people who were like almost homeless, like living in these hotels. The parking was free. These great bars and like little people doing experimental things, very kind of like hipstery, great live music, great DJs, and the whole nine. And then and now you go down to that same area in East Fremont, and it's like parking is $10 minimum everywhere. The SROs have been cleaned out. All of those have been, there's, a sushi spot and a yoga place and whatnot. Impossible to live down there. The rent is so high. All the spots are just packed full of just the worst type of people. Where it used to be like relatively empty, you could go in, have an awesome drink, have an awesome conversation, and then you'd like look out and like some homeless dude was standing in front of, like one of the beauty bar, and pop locking, for like, and it's like, dude, this is amazing. But that's you take the soul out.
Yeah.
And people are like, they think what they want. And this, believe me, I'm not just rambling. This goes straight to this, because there was this mantra coming from the Bitcoin SV side that they were saying, it's time for Bitcoin to grow up and professionalize.
Yeah, they said they were all about the government being involved, right?
All about it.
Yeah.
And to them, they said, and this thing about professionalize, it needs to professionalize. It needs to be fall in line with the state and all of this. And it's like, you think you want that. But that's not what made Bitcoin valuable. Bitcoin's only 10 years old.
Yeah.
It's only 10 years old. From literally a paper to now has been 10 years.
Yep.
And during the power of all of that was that the state was not involved, that there were no licenses required, that people could just do as they chose. Oh, you don't like Bitcoin the way that it's written? Fork it. Fork your mother if you want fork.
Fork this.
That's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, absolutely.
The splits are features, not bugs, because it's the ultimate desire of what human beings have wanted. Why did the Pilgrims? That was a fork.
They forked it.
They forked it.
Yeah.
We're sitting in New Hampshire. How did this place come to be? The history of this place is the history of a fork of a culture.
Mm-hmm.
A group of people who were willing to suffer through hardships, to make it on their own, even to risk their lives for the opportunity to do it in the way that they wanted to do it.
Yep. Nobody's going to tell me how to live. And by coming here and taking the risk and doing it their own way, we had that for a while, right? And people will decide, oh, well, I don't really want to work that hard. I don't want to take risk. I don't, there's fear. And when you start focusing on the fear part of it, and you want somebody to come in and give you that safety net, and then the safety net turns into a hammock, then, we end up with this situation, which is sad.
I think it was very telling when Craig Wright was asked what he thought about Ross Ulbricht. And this was when I was like, oh my God. Like,
what did he have to say about Ross Ulbricht?
If you were in front of me right now, Craig, I would slap you. I would slap you like a Victorian. I would slap you with a glove.
Yes. Yes.
And then I would challenge you to a duel, sir. No, he was like, Ross got exactly what he deserved, and he should rot in jail for the rest of his life.
Dude ran a website. Come on. Really?
Bitcoin. How are you? And we're supposed to believe you're Satoshi Nakamoto? That's what we're supposed to believe.
How the hell did he get what he deserved? I don't get that. Like, that is just unbelievably flawed.
Because he's sick. Because that's what I'm saying. Like, he's a psychopath. Because the key is he doesn't want the state to go away because he secretly dreams of being a dictator.
Sure.
And if the state goes away, he doesn't get to be a dictator.
No, he's the Victor Von Doom in his fantasies.
That's right. And, for me, this whole Ross is important in a lot of ways. Like, Ross Ulbricht is important because I've said he's the Nelson Mandela of this thing. And the reason why I say it is because I remember back in the 80s, I don't remember exactly the year that Mandela got out, but when he got out, he went on this must have been, what was that? 89, 90, 91. So it's probably like around there. So
it depends on, the Mandela effect.
Don't do that to me.
Oh, come on. Everybody knows he died in jail. Come on.
Right. No. He got out and he did a world tour. And one of the stops was the LA Coliseum. Mm-hmm. And my parents got tickets.
Cool.
One of our family friends who was who taught with a couple who were family friends the wife taught with my mother and stepfather at the same high school. They were high school teachers. Her husband was like an IRA member.
The Irish Republican Army?
Correct.
Really?
Yes. And so he was an academic.
Okay.
So he's a college professor, but I guess he was kind of like he couldn't go back to Ireland or go to UK or any of the
I would imagine
Commonwealth for any period of time because he was like well known as. It was a little bit like, what is this dude's? He's definitely sympathetic, you know what I mean? And he was well known as being sympathetic in that regard. So, so obviously, in terms of that whole thing, they were like, so he was able to score some sweet tickets to
he had connections,
He was able to score some sweet tickets to this thing, and because the ANC was a terrorist organization. And I've gotten shit from South Africans, white South Africans, for saying that Nelson Mandela is, and that's why I'm prefacing it with this, that Ross Ulbricht is the Nelson Mandela of this. I'm not saying that because they say Ross is not a terrorist. Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when Mandela was out, and I remember being in the LA Coliseum and it was packed. Ladysmith Black Mambaza was up there singing. Then Nelson Mandela came out and talked, and Hugh Masekela was there, and like all these people. And all these like celebrities, you know, because this is the LA Coliseum. So you're looking down and you're seeing like, wow, here's all these celebrities, man. Like Schwarzenegger was there, Stallone, and all this. And it's like, wow, this is crazy. And you knew that apartheid was over. That was it. Like you knew it was over. When Mandela was out and free, you knew apartheid was done. You knew that was the end. And that's why to say you can't have it both ways, Craig. You can't say I want Bitcoin to be the money for 5 billion people and I think Ross Ulbricht should spend the rest of his life in jail. Because if Ross Ulbricht is spending the rest of his life in jail, Bitcoin is not going to be the money of the world.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And that's why Ross is the Nelson Mandela. Because when Ross is out, then you know Bitcoin has won.
Yeah.
Because it's about the whole Ross Ulbricht case is not about Silk Road and Tor. The whole Ross Ulbricht case is about Bitcoin. It was Chuck Schumer who put it through. It took place in New York. This was Wall Street. This was the establishment versus Bitcoin. This was the state versus Bitcoin. If you think that you're going to make Bitcoin acceptable to the state, that you're going to bring the vampire into the room and it's going to be okay, dead wrong.
Yeah. Because, you know, we know the state has a long history of improving the things that they get involved with. You know, they only make it better.
They're
and
like
simpler.
BASF.
They're BASF. They are the BASF of everything. They make the roads better. They make the taxes better. Literally everything in our life is so much better when the state gets more involved.
Because Bitcoin should be a lot more like the DMV.
It should be. Absolutely. If I want Bitcoin, I go fill out a form. I, wait 6 months, fill out another form, wait another couple of months, and, then I go in and they hand me a sheet of paper that actually has my key that 15 other people have already seen. And, I take it home, and then I have my sheet of paper with my and that's the extent of the technology. That's as far as it will ever develop, because when the state gets involved in technology, it stops.
Right.
Dead stop.
Well, it
right
has
there.
to. It has to, because bureaucracy.
Right. Because then you have judges making decisions about rolling back blockchains when they have no freaking idea what it is that they're talking about. And when you have people making decisions, they don't understand what they're making a decision about. That is the worst kind of government involvement. I am speechless.
Well, and to initiate that.
Yeah.
But it goes right back to the idea of the woman who's in the horror movie running away from the slasher and trips, and the slasher gets her. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why that trope is used over and over and over, and why it works. And the reason why it works is because that which you fear, that which you hate, is that which destroys you.
Right.
Hate destroys you.
Yes.
It's hate. What you hate is what kills you. I would on occasion encounter a woman who would talk about, I went through my boyfriend's phone or my husband's phone or whatever, and I found XYZ, and I'm always like, listen, you stop and think about that really for a minute. Like, is there anything that's operating from fear? By the way, that's operating from pure hate.
Yep.
There's no love in there. There's only hate. That is pure fear. There is absolutely nothing good that can come out of that, because either one, you Here you go. There we go. Yes, thank you.
There we go.
Either one, you look through and you find something that you wouldn't have otherwise found.
Yep.
And now perhaps this destroys your relationship, and maybe it's actually nothing. Thank you. Or maybe it's something, but regardless, it's something you didn't know about before. And so now your relationship is in a state, and the question is, did you want the relationship to be over? Because if you wanted the relationship to, do you want to? You want me to get you a napkin? Here.
No, it's fine. I literally dropped. It was like a tiny little drop of wine.
It's fine. We've got a new table, so
we do have a new. This
good.
is a fantastic new table. I didn't want to mess it up, And my OCD was like, "Oh my god, I dropped wine on the table."
So either if you didn't want the relationship to be over. So in other words, if your fear was, oh, some woman is going to steal him away and I'm going to lose him to someone else. So you didn't want the relationship to be over. So now you went in, you found something on his phone so now it's going to cause a conflict. You've increased the chances of the relationship being over. Or you find nothing on the phone. Mm-hmm. But now, one, you've set a precedent.
Yep.
This is not going to be the last time you look through the phone.
No.
It's not going to go away because you fed the beast.
Yep.
You fed the dragon of ego. And the dragon doesn't get smaller. It gets bigger.
Yeah.
And that little dragon is going to be telling you, well, you didn't find anything last time, but there's something going on.
Yeah, he's been acting funny the last couple of weeks.
He's acting funny.
Yeah.
He's acting weird. You better look at his phone. You better go through his phone.
Yep.
And then it's like, you didn't find something, but you fed that dragon. And believe me, now you start. Now you're not trusting him. Now your general demeanor towards him is changing. Now you're suspect. He feels that. The love is starting to go. The love is gone because it's being replaced by fear. Mm-hmm. They can't exist in the same space.
Yep.
They can't exist. Love and fear. Think about that. Love and fear can exist. They cannot exist in the same space because you can't love something and fear it at the same time. It's impossible.
Right. You can fear something and be addicted to it, but that is completely different.
And this is what I was trying to communicate in this conversation that I was having on Twitter when somebody was like, "How do you know love and fear?" And I was like, "They're actually kind of like they're the same thing. It's like they're like opium and methadone. Like they're kicking off the same because they live in the same space.
Yeah, two sides of the same coin.
Two sides of the same coin. They occupy the same psychological niche for you. They fill the same void. Yep. We have to have them because there's only two things that motivate us. My buddy Billy Nolan, who's like the hustler supreme. Out in Vegas.
Supreme.
Shout out to Billy Nolan if he's checking this out. This dude is like all-star motivation. People go to if you're an entrepreneur, Billy Nolan, friend of mine in Vegas, all-star motivation. You've never met somebody who is so goddamn motivated. I don't know where it comes from. This is one of these unique individuals where it's like you could throw him in the middle of the desert with like 10 people and you could come back a year later and he would have like organize them to build a whole city, and they would be like, we love it here. It's fantastic. We love it. And he would just every day just be up, just motivating them, making them. He's just a great human being, right? And he's just a unicorn, just one of these weird individuals.
I really want to know what flipped that switch on for him.
We should invite him. We should invite him out. He's such a cool cat, man. Like I love this dude.
There had to be a point in his life where it just went bam.
I think he's always been this way. He's a Vegas dude. His dad is like a long time, well known in the city casino host. He founded a multi-million-dollar business from scratch. And not only did he found a business, but he's franchised the business, and all the people that are his like sort of top earners, the people who have their own businesses everywhere are like they're just motivated people. They're not educated, they're just people who just were willing to like work hard, bust their ass, and do that. And he's given so many people a chance, and it's just like, wow, lifted so many people out of poverty. It's crazy.
But that is the great lie of this generation, is that you have to have a degree, and not just any degree, but you've got to have a good degree.
Right.
And you've got to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to get it.
Right.
And that's the only way to succeed here in the U.S. That is just a ginormous lie.
It's a lie. And this is somebody who puts the lie to it. But he's one of the people who says, look, I mean, his company's called All-Star Motivation. It's great. It's beautiful. But he's like, there's only 2 motivations. It's funny because like I met him after I had come to this realization, but this is part of his mantra that he's like, it's only hope to gain and fear of loss. That's it. That's it. Hope to gain, fear of loss. Which one is it? Which one is motivating you? Which one is moving you forward? You got to choose. They're both powerful.
Yeah.
They're both going to get you, in other words, they're both going to get you running at full sprint.
Mm-hmm.
The difficult part about it is, though, that I think it's much easier to motivate someone to run at full sprint out of fear. If you want to motivate someone else, it's because hope is internal.
Yeah.
Fear is external.
Right.
Right? It's like what motivates you to run at full sprint at something with hope and with love is coming from inside of you. And what's motivating you from fear is you're externally focused.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing is that some people want to motivate others with fear because it's easier, it's expedient.
Well, the state certainly does.
That's the state's whole game.
Yeah.
It's all of course it's all fear.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the capper on this. The capper on this is, people were saying in conversations on Twitter, they were saying something like, "Oh, going the civil route." And I'm like, no, there is no civil route. When you get the state involved, you're threatening somebody else with death.
Absolutely.
Every action of the state is a threat of we will kill you.
Yeah.
From a busted taillight to a civil lawsuit, it's all a threat of we will kill you. And people are like, what are you talking about? Civil lawsuit threat that we will kill you. And it's like, look, so let's take this civil lawsuit. Let's say that one of these individuals decides, I'm just not going to show up. Let's say they get the summary judgment against them. They say, okay, it's a fine. It's you need to pay this and you need to take this action. And then you just decide you're not going to take the action. And then they say, okay, you're in contempt of court. Now that contempt of federal court, now that is a federal crime.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to subpoena you and you've got to show up to court. And you've got to deal with this because that's a crime. That's a warrant out for you now. That's a criminal warrant. Let's say you evade that warrant. You go out. You're traveling around wherever you're going. You're at the airport. They run your ID. All of a sudden, a whole bunch of federal marshals show up. Department of Homeland Security. Boom, you're under arrest.
Yep.
We're taking you to the federal holding cell. Okay, now you're going to be... Here we go. Or let's say they come to take you to the federal holding cell and you're like, fuck this. Take off running.
Yeah.
Evading arrest now.
Yeah.
Right? Let's say they come to chase you down. Let's say they're like, stop resisting, stop resisting, stop resisting.
Yep.
And you're like, I'm not
going
to jail. I'm fuck this. You try to take off. Let's say you lash your hand out and perhaps you hit a marshal
in the nuts.
That could be the end of your life right there.
Every interaction
that's right. With the state.
With the state. Yeah, exactly. Every interaction could be your last day on earth.
Well, that's what they do.
Yeah. That's their tool. They have a hammer and they use it.
That is what the state does. The state kills people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the state does.
Yep. Yeah, we just had one of the biggest mass murderers to ever live pass away recently, and
he had his little service dog, whatever it was, Scooby or whatever, just laying in front. What did What a gentle and wonderful man.
Yeah.
What a gentle and this motherfucker's a mass murderer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what the state is like, if you kill enough people, then you get, I mean, you're going to at least maybe that's the concession prize. It's like, well, you're going to hell, so we may as well, like, for 3 days or something like that. Well, did you see Google? They made the Google logo gray.
I did not see that. No.
Yeah, day of mourning.
Oh.
Day of mourning for George W. Bush. The
Wow.
Google logo went gray. I was like, wow, you lefty motherfuckers.
Yes.
Wow, you really don't stand for shit. Like,
No.
you really don't have any principles whatsoever.
Nope. People are so blind to this stuff. It is crazy to me. There has been, we were actually thinking about talking about like cult stuff this week, which
which we'll do next week maybe.
We'll do,
because
but
it's appropriate.
There's a lot of cult stuff involved in this conversation. But what drives me crazy is the political cultish behavior. When you take a look like somebody like Alexandria Cortez,
Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
So I've seen multiple interviews with this young lady, and she's 29.
Yep.
And I'm like, wow, at 29, I had kids, I had a wife, I had a house, I had a job, I had all these things. I had a life to live. I was paying bills. It was like things were running full speed. And I'm looking at her, and I'm like, you know what? She's not dumb. A lot of people are like, oh, she's so stupid. She's not stupid. All right, she's not like mentally impaired.
No.
What she is ignorant.
She's ignorant.
And that is completely different.
That's right.
That is completely different.
No, because she is articulate.
She is very
no
articulate
about that.
And I think that she has been fed a narrative her entire life from her mentors, her teachers, the people that she looks up to, that this is the way the world works and this is how to fix it. And she is just parroting everything that she has heard from her mentors.
But you see, that works.
It does. And the problem is it's not just her. And this is the thing, is like, there was somebody that said that she is the future of the Democratic Party. And I'm like,
she's the present of the Democratic Party. I had this realization this morning, and I hate having these. So I haven't owned a TV for many, many years. My wife, by the way, hates that. But I have not owned a TV. I figure if it's good enough that I really need to watch it, I'll watch it on a little fucking screen. That I have to like actively, because otherwise I'll veg out in front of the thing. So it's like I haven't owned a TV in very, very long. So when I encounter, I probably could do it. The danger is probably a lot less now than it was at the time. And now, mind you, I didn't own a TV during the time that I was star of a TV show. Let's just keep that in mind. All right.
How did you watch yourself every week?
I would usually go over to Brace's house. We would have a viewing party over at Brace's usually.
See, that is a fantastic idea. Yeah. Wow. Now I do have a question. Yeah. So after getting completely pummeled in the rap contest, did Nick sue you in court?
No. I guess rap battles are still safe from the state. But so this morning, so I obviously don't have, since I don't have a TV, I clearly don't have cable. But when I go to the gym, there is on the cardio, there is the rack of TVs, right? And I was watching today, and I was like, oh, we are, and I think that you can only realize this if you don't own a TV, and then you see it, because otherwise I could totally see like, oh no, this is just, that's just what's on TV. But you have all the TVs. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, we are living in the capital from the Hunger Games.
Oh.
And I think the thing about that, I think that story is great more from, that story is more of a landscape rather than a real hero's journey. It's like this cool, it's like 1984 in that way, where it's like, it's more about the world that is there than it is about the individual narrative, which is kind of cool. Like, it's cool with 1984. It's very much like a new school 1984. But the depiction of the people in the Capitol is what you're talking about with Ocasio-Cortez is someone from the Capitol. Like, these are people who are ignorant.
Yeah.
And they're not bad people. Like, and that's that sort of there's the Effie Trinket character who's kind of like she's actually, in some ways, in that whole series of books, she's kind of the most complex character out of everybody. And she's, from the beginning all the way to the end, she's in this story, but like, she's this individual who is asleep and then becomes awake. It's kind of like Plato's cave, whereas everybody else is already awake, but she's asleep and then becomes awake. And that's fascinating to me. But it just shows that it's like, we are just collectively really, really asleep. And I feel like the culture of Bitcoin has been a culture that has, people get involved and they wake up in a way. They want to know about Austrian economics, and just economics in general. They want to think about philosophy. They want to thinking about money is powerful. Yeah. And I feel like this is, you get the state involved and it's like, back to sleep with you, man. Back to sleep with you.
Because the next thing we'll have the Fed involved.
Yeah.
So it's to really understand, and I'm not saying I am an economist or I understand economics, to any great degree. It's one of those things that is open for debate, right? Because you have economists across the political spectrum. You have economists that actually agree that, we should just take, $21 trillion from the Pentagon and pay for healthcare.
Just pay for it.
Yeah, just pay for it. Just pay for it. It's fine. I saw a thing today that, Jeff Bezos makes something like $8 million an hour or something. And, it only costs so much money to do this thing. So, we should tax him at the rate that would pay for the thing and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, okay, so you're talking about taking a guy who literally created one of the biggest companies on earth. And, personally,
it makes everybody's life better.
I am a gigantic fan of 2-day delivery because I live in the woods now and I still get 2-day delivery, and it's unbelievable to me that I can live way out in bumfuck Egypt and I get 2-day delivery. Unbelievable.
See, this is the misunderstanding that people have is you get rich to the degree that you make people's lives better.
Oh yeah. He made a hell of a lot of people's lives a lot better. He deserves to be rich.
Almost nobody, unless you've gotten rich through the violence of the state.
Oh, yeah,
Everybody who's rich, who has not gotten rich through the violence of the state, deserves to be rich.
For sure.
Because that means that every single dollar that they've made has been voluntarily given to them.
Correct. Because they provided value.
That's right. That's it. Yeah.
Even Calvin Ayre. He provided a lot of value to a lot of people.
I have no problem with Calvin Ayre having what he has, spending it in the way that he has, and which is the exact reason why I'm like, every communication that I've tried to have with this individual has been like, dude, just wake up. Honestly, it's and to say maybe you're misunderstanding what Bitcoin is. And again, like, I hate that because no one knows what Bitcoin is. But what I do know is that there are a few things that Satoshi, when you talk about Satoshi's vision, really there are a few things that he saw about Bitcoin that he wrote about in the white paper. A few sort of maxims of here's an idea. This is a self-contained idea. That's one of the maxims, that like you don't need to involve anybody else. Where he says the system is robust in its, what does he say? In its unstructured simplicity. So he's like, look, it's kind of this blank canvas, but it's here. You can sort of paint whatever you want on the canvas, but it's got to stay within the canvas. And also, you can do everything you need to do inside the canvas. That's what I built for you. I built for you this self-contained world where you can do everything.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that he says in the incentive section, which is the most important section, because Bitcoin is incentives, is he says you can't inflict pain on other people without inflicting pain on yourself. That is the most important thing to understand if you want to be involved in Bitcoin, is that okay, if you want to have pain, you can inflict pain on others, but it's going to inflict pain on you too.
Yep. And unfortunately, some people
Psychopaths.
are okay with that.
Psychopaths. You've got, this is what he did not count on.
Yeah.
They say it's somewhere between 3 and 7%. Some people say it's as low as 1, but even if it's 1% of the human population are just born psychopaths.
I mean, even if you're talking about just the population of the U.S., and let's round it off to 300 million, that's 300 people. Or no, I'm sorry.
3 million.
3 million people, right.
That's 3
million
million legit psychopaths.
Yeah.
And one psychopath can leave a trail of destruction after them.
3 million people is a lot of freaking people.
That's it's more than the population of New Hampshire.
By 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 3 New Hampshires
Full.
packed of nothing
full.
but psychopaths.
Yeah.
And they're just running around.
Crazy.
They're running around. So that's what you don't count on, and it's the thing that is not. This is the thing that we've got to figure out for ourselves, and this is our opportunity to figure it out. How do you deal with psychopaths? How do you deal with psychopaths in this system? And
you elect them to office.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's literally exactly
That's what we've done in the past.
That's exactly what happens. I tend to believe that this is weird, and I know that I'm going to need to be very old before I start to write about this and to really like lay this out, because it's so dark. But I actually believe that the psychopath is the germ of, they're sort of like the dust in the oyster. They're the grain of sand. Yes, they're the grain of sand in the oyster.
Yeah. The
existence of the psychopath is what has generated the most important innovations in human history.
Yeah, I think that I think we touched on this on one of our previous shows, and I totally agree. I think that it's mutation, right? So there are mutations that end up, producing tremendous value to the population in general. And I think, the psychopaths that have come about have done some pretty freaking amazing things. A lot of them using the power of the state to their advantage to accomplish them.
Yep. Well, and also the fact that psychopaths force non-psychopaths to rise to levels that they otherwise would not rise to. Like, psychopaths initiate courses of history where people who otherwise would just sit at home and be normal people and do their thing and go to 9 to 5s rise and become band together.
Yeah.
And become heroes.
Yeah.
To defend their to simply defend the opportunity to just be a simple farmer.
Right. So without Hitler, we wouldn't have had Captain America.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying.
And it's true that I think that there are a lot of people that just want to live their life.
It's all the non-psychopaths.
Yeah. This is like, people, I think there is this misconception that everybody needs to be a Beyonce, but it's not true. It's like people just want to live their life.
Dude, Beyonce doesn't even want to be Beyonce.
It's absolutely true.
If we're really, really real about it.
Yeah.
Beyonce spends a good deal of her time wishing that she was not Beyonce.
Yeah.
Being envious of the person that she sees out the limo window.
Yep.
Who's just able to go grocery store, just shopping at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Like a normal human being.
And not be bothered.
And not be bothered.
Yeah. That's the dream. And everybody has this flipped upside down notion that, we all need to be famous. We all need to be rich. We all need to be, the happiness is in, riches and fame and whatever, but it's not,
Well, it's great because this was again, it's like all these things. This was the conversation. So the Bitcoin SV logo is the dragon.
Oh, yeah.
And I found that to be, when I saw that it was a dragon, I was like, wow, you guys are really going to do this? Because the dragon is, thank you, for people who have studied, again, Joseph Campbell, Hero with 1,000 Faces, people go out, get it, audiobook it if you need to.
2-day delivery, Amazon Prime.
There you go. Or just Audible. Just do your Audible. Hero with 1,000 Faces and the Cosmogonic Cycle. The dragon is one of the most interesting and powerful archetypal. So you've got the serpent in the garden, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we started out with that on this show.
Yeah.
The dragon is powerful, but what does the dragon represent? It's the same thing in both the East and West, but the East and West approach it differently. But certainly, I mean, we're dealing Western. In the West, the dragon is the manifestation of the ego. And the interesting thing, Joseph Campbell is the one who laid this one out, where he was like, you look at the dragon in Western mythology, and it's guarding one of two things. The dragon guards gold, so this is like Lord of the Rings, mm-hmm. or the dragon guards virgins. So this is like Sleeping Beauty. Mm-hmm. It is Sleeping Beauty that's guarded by a dragon, right? No, not Sleeping Beauty.
No.
No, it is. I believe it is. Sleeping Beauty is guarded by a dragon. The evil witch turns into a dragon, I think, in Sleeping Beauty.
Oh, interesting. I actually have the original versions of Grimm's fairy tales at home. I have not yet read the book because it's ginormous.
You're going to have to hand that over because I've heard that the originals are crazy. But here's the thing about...
They are crazy.
So here's the thing about the dragon guarding gold and virgins. These are two things for which the dragon has absolutely no use.
Absolutely, yeah.
Nothing. The dragon can't spend the money.
No.
And the dragon can't bang the chick.
No.
So that's the whole thing. She stays a virgin. Mm-hmm. He's after the fair maiden. He locks her up. He guards her, and so the hero kills the dragon. Because the hero can actually see. The hero can use these things.
Sure.
But the dragon can't.
Right.
And that's what it was so interesting that I was like, oh, the SV logo is a dragon. Oh, they chose a dragon, and then here they go with. We want all the hash power. We want all the hash power so we can mine at a loss so we can have this chain be ours. For what? 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 We want to... Oh, we're going to sue these guys. We're going to sue them. For what? For what? For what? Like, for what? This is your gold, and this is your virgin. And the thing is, the dragon can't articulate even why it wants these things. You know, the scene with Smaug and Bilbo Baggins, you know, when he goes into the Lonely Mountain and Smaug is in the mountain of gold that the dwarves have mined out of the mountain, and he's just crawling around in there, and Bilbo, and he's like, a thief to come in to steal my gold. And it's like, motherfucker, like, what? Why would you care? Why would you care if someone stole your gold? And that's this lawsuit. This lawsuit is Smaug sitting on gold, and that's why it's so ridiculous. It's because it's like, what are you even talking about here?
Yeah. So they were looking to take control. Now, were they taking control in order to ensure decentralization, or were they trying to centralize?
Well, their chain is centralized. Their whole thing was, we have majority hash, so we're going to decide what happens on the chain. Miners choose, and I'm like, wait, isn't majority hash? Isn't that centralization? Mm-hmm.
And they're suing somebody because they centralized before they could centralize.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
cool.
yeah. You did. Well, this is the dragon and the gold.
Yeah,
it's the dragon and the gold, because it's like, I'm suing you because you got the gold before I got the gold. Well, what were you going to do with the gold? Well, What do you mean? What was I going to do with the gold? It's gold. What does anybody do with gold? They get it. They get it, and then it's gold. And then it's like because gold, because you're supposed to have gold and virgins, and it was a virgin, and I'm supposed to have a virgin and put her in a tower, and you tried to steal my virgin. And it's like, well, what were you going to do with that virgin, dude? Like, she's aging. She's been up there for about 35 years or so. I don't know. Like, what do you like at a certain point? Well, no, because that's my virgin, and she's supposed to be in my tower, and you can't. What are you doing?
I'm more of a collector.
Right. Yeah, it's like, because that's what it is. It's like, okay, so, and then the question is always like, and then what?
What's next? What are you going to do? Like, what's the plan?
What's the plan?
Yeah.
What are you doing here? And do you really want to? So what are you asking? Okay, so you're asking a judge to determine what some developers can do or cannot do. And it just so happens that those developers are the ones most responsible for the software that you yourself forked. So you could have forked any software, but you thought that the most valuable software to fork was that which was coded by these individuals, but yet you want to stop them from coding. Perhaps you don't really understand how this all works, because like I look at the Dash commits, I look at the Ravencoin commits, and what I see is every time the core devs do an update that is worth a damn, they merge it. So the core devs are continuing to develop for all of these forks. They basically work for all the forks. So what you want to do is you basically want to take 3 talented developers and prevent them from developing software that you can use for free. And that's a good business practice for you.
Apparently so.
You are a dragon collecting gold. That's all you are. That's all I see you. That's all. You're Smog. Because you don't even know how to use what you've got. You have no clue.
No. Nope.
It's very sad.
It is a strange situation with strange players. And yeah, I don't know if we've actually made any more sense out of it than we started with.
Well, I think
odd.
It's Bitcoin is an opportunity. I think, if for nothing else, then for people to, and I hope that we have done this by talking about it, just because it's interesting, of giving people jumping off points for them to go and learn more for themselves, because it's this weird sort of situation where if you get this esoteric, alchemical, archetypal, psychological aspect, you can actually make these bets and actually make money.
Sure. Absolutely. Or you can just kind of watch it and eat popcorn.
There's a big popcorn opportunity. There's a big popcorn opportunity, or drink some wine. So if people want to drink some wine, and if they want to drink wine with us, they can go to wink.com.
Yes, indeed.
Actually, don't go to wink.com straight away. Go to vinarmani.com/wine. That will take you to wink.com. It'll give you $20 off if you want to do the wine club. But what we would like you to do is we would like you to give us a gift card at show@vinarmani.com. Send it over there, and you will be a wine sponsor. Our wine sponsors have been great.
Oh, yeah.
It's been crazy.
We have had, and I will say, sometimes it's friends of ours that we know here in New Hampshire.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's people from out of state.
Let's be honest. Everybody who's a wine sponsor, if you send us wine, you're a friend of ours.
Oh, by default. Absolutely.
By default.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
And, being friends of ours comes with certain benefits, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's Cosa Nostra. It's one of us. It's a friend of ours.
We take care of our own.
Take care of our own. Yeah. Yes, very nice. Send us some vino. Oh, we love it. Forget about it. Forget about it.
Excellent.
Well, I think that's we gave everybody 2 hours.
Oh yeah, we fulfill our commitments. We come on here, we have fun, we drink wine for 2 hours, maybe once a week, maybe every couple of weeks.
I feel like you're about to go into a WWE thing right now. I feel like you were.
I could.
Don't.
I don't. I could rap. We could do that. That'd be pretty cool.
We're good because we've got you on wine and painkillers. So I'm not really trying to push the envelope here. I don't know what we're gonna do. We've got it. So we've got a topic for next week that I think is way more on Destination Unknown.
Okay.
And it's the one that we talked about. That it's kind of like, where is the sort of spiritual? I think it's to sort of pull it back, right? So we're getting into a discussion of sort of cult behavior, religions, and all of that. But we started the show in a place of, and I think it's the place that we're at, of like spiritual exploration.
Yeah.
I'd like to make that separation. There may be some interesting things that are happening in Bitcoin, and I love talking about that, and I think the audience loves it. I want to get back to that, and I want to start exploring these things because I think it's valuable to our listeners. And
I agree.
You've got a strong background in that, so.
No, it's fun. Listen, every one of these shows is fun. We get together, we drink wine, we talk about a lot of stuff. It is a fantastic way to spend a Friday evening.
Oh, I agree. I would not rather be doing anything else.
Next week, definitely down. It is my son's birthday next week, so I will be back in town. I've actually got my first physical therapy appointment. So yes, we will definitely be having a show next week.
Okay.
And I think the discussion about the difference between religion and what people refer to as legitimate religion versus cults, I think that is a very rich land for plowing, if you will.
Always down for the plow. All right, brother. Well, we will see all of you guys next week then, right here on Vin and Dave's Destination Unknown. Thank you as always, sir.
Thank you.
Cheers.